Namaste and welcome to Indic Academy, Lucrezia. It's such a pleasure to have you with us. Indic Academy is a platform for Indian knowledge systems, and we also have a special vertical called the Center for Soft Power, where we look at non-Indians engaging with Indian traditions and culture. So it's a great privilege to have you with us today. Lucrezia is a Bharatanāṭyam dancer as well as a scholar on theatre. And we would like your views, Lucretia, on how you first got attracted to Indian dance. And could you tell us your earliest memory of?
Yeah. So basically, when I was a teenager, I was curious about lots of places in the world, and one was India, of course. And I was already in performing arts in theater. I was already practitioner of theater. There was an Indian cultural center in Milan called Sneha Sadan, and was run by an Indian family. And they used to have, it was a kind of house, Indian house, suddenly in the center of Milan. And they used to have programs, performances, lecture demonstrations, and lots of beautiful initiative generally around Indian culture. So I started joining their programs, going for attending programs and all. So basically, to make it short, first I saw their all Indian classical, not only Bharatanatyam, and I got very impressed by the fact that lots of elements were together. So theater, music, poetry. That was the first big attraction for me. So but still that time I was sure I would have gone through the theater path only. So I started learning Bharatanatyam because actually I choose Bharatanatyam mainly because there was only available Bharatanatyam in Italy that time. So I started learning Bharatanatyam and as just for out of curiosity. In the meanwhile, I started university and I started joining for a course for an MA actually for theater. I did all the exams in theater, but I did all the exams also in Indology. That time, when I joined university, there was only Sanskrit. But then when the second year started this course called Indology, so it's a course which give the basic of all Indian culture, basically. So we studied history of art, philosophy, kavya, poetry, literature, whatever. So it was a very complete course that was very important for me. So slowly I got more attracted to the Indian culture. So I went deeper and deeper. Alongside with the Bharatanatyam course, I started the academic course, let's say. And meanwhile, I started coming to India. So the first time I came to India was 2004, basically. So this year it's my 20th year. So I started
Just one
coming.
minute. Please continue, Lucretia. Sorry.
So should I continue? Yeah. And you want me to restart?
No, you can continue. You can continue.
Okay.
Or do you want
So
to
what will
restart?
I do
I
wish,
don't
I
know
do
what
wish
is
I
the
can
quality of
restart.
recording.
Yeah, maybe I'll restart. No, so start a new freshing recording. That's perfect.
Please start.
Okay. So how I went close to Indian art form is because when I was a teenager in my city, Milan, Italy, there was an Indian cultural center called Sneha Sadan where they used to have programs about the general culture. Could have been performances, lecture demonstration, exhibitions, even the cuisine was there, music, dance, and all. That's where I was a teenager. I was curious about India as many other places in the world. But when I
I'm
saw the
sorry,
India,
Lucretia. I think I'm still getting the sound.
but it's not
So
in I'm not getting.
you're not getting? Okay.
When you
I'm
are
just
mute, I
worried.
can't hear.
Okay. I'm just worried about the recording. Okay.
I don't hear anything actually here. So basically, I was already in theater, but I was already in the performing arts. So when I saw Indian dance, I was captivated by the fact that theater, music, dance, everything come together, poetry in one art form. So that time I started practicing a little bit of Bharatanatyam. At the same time, I started going to university where in university they open one course called Indology. So Indology is the history of Indian culture. So we used to study history of India, Indian arts, literature, philosophy, whatever it was related to India from whatever sources we have in the world onwards. So it was a very good base for me for having an academic background and how do you say, having a base on the cultural that in the culture that is around an art form, because the Indian classical art form has a lot of behind that. So I started to, so basically the path of academic path. At the same time, Bharatanatyam was going on. At the same time, also theater was still going on for a bit. Then slowly I started coming to India. First time it was 2004. So this year for me is the 20th year I am basically coming and going from India, even though the last 4 years I'm mostly based here. So 2004 I started coming to India, and it was my dream came true basically. And from 2004 I kept coming and going at least twice a year. And up to 2008, when I got a scholarship for staying 1 year, and I got a scholarship for the international excellencies to come and pursue further studies in Bharatanatyam. That time already I found my guru Adyar K. Lakshman, so I was following his teachings. So that year was very very important because we had class every day, 7 days on 7. And at the end of this year, that was 2009 August, I gave my debut performance with the sir conducting the program in Kapalishwara temple here in Chennai. And so from there, he came to my place and inaugurated my classes. So in Italy, we have one association who has this project called Accademia Sangam, which it's to teach Bharatanatyam basically in Milan. So, and it was opened by my guru. So he only introduced me to the also art of teaching, not only learning and dancing. So since 2009, the journey went on deeper and deeper and deeper. I kept coming and going. I kept performing in the season, performing in wherever it was possible, here and there. And I went deep also in the studies. And obviously, in the meanwhile, I was graduated, that I didn't say. And in graduation, my dissertation was on Mahabharata. And slowly the theater kept aside because Bharatanatyam took over basically all my life. And the last 4 or 5 years before lockdown, where I got stuck happily in Chennai, I am doing opposite. Basically, I'm staying here and going back to Italy a couple of times in a year. Yeah, that's the
So you
general
have
history.
also been, yeah, you've been in academics also. And could you tell us, have you studied the travel of Bharatanatyam from India to outside India? Is there any pattern of how it goes from here, from the gurus here? Or, first actually it comes with students coming into India, meeting gurus here, and again it goes back to their country of origin. And how does the whole process change the art form in this, travel from India to outside, back to India, back? So does the art form change in any way?
So believe that the art form change any way, anyhow, or whatever, change also within the country, change also within the small migration inside the country. So it's an art form which is, that's the beauty, which is a tradition in movements. So it's still traditional, but still keep on changing, which is the beauty of it. Of course, we should not miss lack in the roots of it or in the essence of it, and that is the risk sometimes. But so actually, my academic studies were very classical. So I studied Sanskrit, I studied very classical traditional things. But definitely, I have lots of experience of this interchange between the countries. I would say that is very different accordingly to every country. First of all, I don't know. For example, the eastern part of the world, like for example Singapore, Malaysia. I don't know much about that world. I know that there is obviously a big connection with US because in US there are lots of immigrations from India. So definitely there it's more that Indians went there, and there it's more related to the fact that community of Indians who are living abroad comes together into seeing also Bharatanatyam and any other art form, traditional art form, has something which to holds to their culture. So it's a way also to keep on holding the thread, holding the link with the bondage with your country, with your traditions and all. In Europe, it's very different, but again, Europe is very different accordingly country to country. UK, it's a separate thing because UK, obviously, being such a colonialized country, has lots of Indians, lots of exchange, lots of constantly. So it's the different things, and it's a little bit more similar to US in one sense. While in Europe, it's interesting because, in fact, most of the people who are learning Bharatanatyam are foreigners, not Indians, because the Indians are very less. In Italy, there are the biggest community of Indians who are in Italy are mostly Punjabi, Sikh, mostly from Sikh religion and all. So it's definitely another kind of culture which is not much aware or interested in Bharatanatyam. So definitely that's the biggest community which we of Indians that we have in Italy. Then we have some cousins of Indians. So we have some Sri Lankan, but not many Tamilian Sri Lankan. Only in Sicily a little bit. That's all. No other in full Italy. Then a little bit of Mauritius, which are Indians origins. So definitely there is an attack. But really Indians very, very, or Bangladesh, other people who are neighbors, cousins or something, but not really Indians, very few ones. And the ones who are in India are often, in Italy are often there for a shorter time because it's people that either came for work or either came for studies. So maybe 2-3 years and they'll go back. So that's why it has been much more difficult to create a community, a pattern, and an interest in the classical art form. Classical, I call classical, even though I am not that fond of this word, which is a very Western word. Anyhow, it's just to understand. I would say traditional because traditional go inside also all the folk, whatever. Now it's a little bit changing because I am seeing, at least for example, in my school. So before I used to have a kind of 80% would have been foreigners, and maybe 20% Indians coming for class. Now it's almost changed because in the last few years, lots of Indians came to Italy in the last few years, I would say during lockdown and all, maybe because, especially for studies. So it's a little change. And also my school, it's a very specific school because I don't see the same thing in other school in Italy. So I've seen my colleagues, they have still more Italians and less Indians, more usually. I believe because Academia Sangam has kept one big, big link with India. So first of all, it's me, the biggest link, because I am always in India. And also we keep on having teachers coming from India and teaching there. So that link has obviously created maybe more attention from the Indian community. So having said that, it's a big challenge because what I have seen before, the first generations of teachers who taught me as well at the beginning in Italy, the way that they were teaching was a little bit simplified in one sense, in the sense that there was so much awareness by the fact. I'm not saying with the criticism. It was obviously that time they were pioneer. The art form was new. So the way they were teaching was a little bit more concerned, do not like kill your body, for example. So, for example, Murumandi was a tough because most of the people were not were not children. So even I was not a child when I started. Lots of us started when we were, if we were lucky, we were teenagers or at least in the 20s. So not really child. So the body was already a body. So it's, you can't immediately suddenly do some movements, obviously. So that's why they were very concerned about the movements. And there was actually an underlying feeling of not being Indians, therefore not being able to reach that any level, which I believe is not true at all, because I have a student from now, different student. If you do the same, I do the same per course for everyone. But I have to say that there are people who is more interested and maybe more talented or anyhow more hard worker, which is more important. And that one will I mean, proceed faster. That's all. And if they are Indian or not Indians, the only big thing is that Indians might have been, and that's also not that's always true, might have been more familiar with the mythology, with some hand gestures, with some words, definitely with the vocabulary. So if you talk about mudra, if you talk about something about philosophy and all, maybe they might, I'm saying, because it's not always there. I'm teaching now here in Chennai. I'm just substituting a friend of mine who is gone abroad. And I took her class of people, two batches. One, it might be 13 till 15, 16, and the other one 16 till 20 something. So I had to explain everything, the full significance of Shivanataraja, Chidambaram. What is Chidambaram? Because we were doing the Natesha Kautam. I had to go into the details of everything because the girls were not aware, or they have not even been Chidambaram, being in Chennai. So it doesn't really so there is not a fixed pattern. Depends on people, depends on how much they have been exposed, depends on how much they want to. So what I did in my school, I tried to teach in the same way that I have been taught here. So more or less, in the sense, with little bit awareness, that is different. Because, for example, when I went to my guru Lakshman sir, we used to have class every day, 4 5 hours a day or 6 hours a day. Obviously I don't have this luxury in Italy. They cannot come for 6 hours a day. Therefore, in that 1.5 hour or maybe 3 hours in a week, 2 times a week, I have to little bit more, been more concentrated and more effective in shorter time. So in that sense I try to adjust to that timings, but the way I'm trying to teach is all more or less the same that it's here. The result is that honestly I have now little more younger. Before it was more elder people will come also, because it was interested in the culture. So the dance was a gateway to reach the culture somehow. And now is it so, but it's also so physical that mostly are youngsters who are coming, because it's very demanding physical, then it's also demanding mentally. I believe that the first 2 3 years you are like mentally so challenged, because you have to remember lots of stuff, you have to coordinate, lots of things happening. So this is one thing that is little changing over the things. And one more thing, I bring them here. So once a year I organize for them an intensing workshop in India, where they not only have a nice practice, but they also are exposed to scholars for introducing them, for example, architecture, painting, obviously temples history, history of the dance, mythology, music, which is the greatest regret for me, that is in Italy there is no Carnatic musician, there are no Carnatic musicians at all, at all. So that's a very painful thing, because I totally believe that Bharatanatyam should be as much as possible dance with live music, and the dialogue between the two makes a huge difference, huge difference. but still we try to give them this exposure about all whatever it is around the art form. And only I believe when you come here, you are able to relate to many things that you'll find in dance. And it's, I can explain, but it's not the same thing, the same feelings that when you come and you live here and you feel the things here and all.
Most of our arts are about, being a pathway to spiritual realization or moksha. At least that is what our gurus have said. And but Lucretia, do you think that even Indians today don't necessarily see dance and music as being a path for spiritual progress? They see it as an aesthetic form, or they see it for their own, self-realization and the joy they get from the physical practice. So, do you think that we can actually leave out spirituality when we are talking about Indian art forms?
So actually, would have it's a very tricky question because it depends on what you mean for spirituality. For me, the spirituality is the links that you have within yours. How do you say, a journey, which is a journey within yourself, which is connected also with an Almighty that you may give different names. That is an Almighty. This is an essence, which I believe it's also the original ancient philosophy of India was the essence, and that's why I believe that what it's now so called Hinduism, that again is a foreigner word, Hinduism. That this is so called Hinduism was very at the end it's very much even over the religious matter for what I have studied and what I have experimented, because it goes beyond the religions. That's why I feel it's even greater. Actually, when we try to fit in a religion, become actually like others. But I would believe that for me, Indian philosophy has a higher level, because when it's not used as a religion, as a higher level, which can include everything but in a very very um, profound way. That's my way of looking at it. So I believe that art form cannot be separated by the spirituality, in the sense that spirituality is your inner journey. I have grown with the guru who didn't take care of, I mean, who's not even noticing if my skin was fairer or not fairer of others, if my eyes were blue. He used to tell other people when they used to come and watch our class, and they were saying, "Oh, you have a foreigner." You will say, "No, no, no, she's more Indian than you." He'll say first, and then he'll tell them in Tamil, "Par, look." That's all. In that way, he taught me one biggest lesson. Whatever people will say about you, you just dance. So I think dance is the answer for everything. But I believe that dance is the answer for everything. And I believe that everyone has his inner journey. I have seen people from different religion coming and dance in the most sincere way. I have seen, yeah, and I've seen also, I believe that there is authenticity or not authenticity. Authenticity is when you really can relate. I think that every art form, not only Indians, every performing art form has a spirituality elements which has to be it is in how do you say it's in itself, inside the art form itself, because an art form requires you to be your body, your mind, everything of yourself exposed on a stage. It's not a question of showing, but it's a question of living. So it's a very profound and very challenging. That's why if there is no journey which is a spiritual journey, I don't feel there is that. So the way I teach is whatever is your journey, but you should have a journey. You should have a journey within yourself. And my students are trained in a way which we don't believe in showing. I don't believe in competition, for example. I don't make them doing competition. We believe in performing, because the performance is the ritual where you and the audience will dialogue, and where the events is happening. So where the the art form appears. So that's very important. It's very important. It's very important to communicate with the audience, but not to showing to the audience. This we have not been trained. Actually, I have almost a difficulty in my students because they are so. I have to push them. They are, the ones that in the class they'll go always fawn. They'll say the back. They'll say that they don't know anything. They're too much humble sometimes. But definitely, I believe that there is a journey, spiritual journey, which has to be inside, and you can't separate from the other journeys, which is body and mind. Body, mind, and spiritual journey can be. It's a very also mathematic thing because it's such a tough, tough, tough work to put together already mind and body, and in such a it requires a sadhana, requires really a discipline, requires so much. Required discipline means also you have to avoid some other things. So if you do so, means you are already doing a journey. It cannot be separate. That is my point of view. Cannot be separate.
Lucrezia, this sadhana that we talk about, has it changed over generations? Like I used to run a music magazine, and Carnatic musicians used to say, their gurus used to say, practice from night till the sun comes up in peak, heat in Andhra Pradesh. I mean, are our bodies and our mind capable today of that kind of rigor? Like Lakshman Guru, if you could see his concept of sadhana and putting practice will be to the power of 10 of what students today, want to do. So how has the sadhana changed, and will it, do we have to still stick to those high standards that they set for us?
So I have a feeling that looks like changed a lot, but it didn't change so much. I have a feeling in the sense that I can feel that it's changed the medium and the source available. That's have changed. For example, when I started, we didn't have YouTube. We didn't have video. We didn't have even mobile. Maybe it was the first one, but there were no videos or so. So I used to buy, and I was not living in India when I started. No, so I used to buy this book. I can tell you even now, there is one big book of Bharatanāṭyam, which I can tell you which dancer is in the cover page, what costume she's wearing, and what posture she's wearing. We used to, eat a book where every words we will read every words what is written about whom, why this dancer is in this posture, what style she's from, who is her guru, because no informations, so whatever it was possible, I used to have books and then a notebook where I take notes from the book. That was the madness. And now obviously everything is easier available. I think that when a dance form, any form of art that's going on and on and on becomes more, you become more essential. So I think the teachers are able to go into the essence easier than before. So that therefore it's faster in one sense. And definitely instead of, I don't see any one of my students really watching one book like this, and we were collecting books and whatever material, even a postcard, even the incredible India's tourism things who were the whole classical art form. I can tell you, Leelaka, one of my mentor, was one of the dancer there, and I knew that. And there was Kalamandalam Gopi. I don't know, all these figures that were from different art form, and we used to eat whatever it was available because of that. Now I have a feeling then that since there is a process that everyone has to go through, so there is a moment that you should really, if you are interested and this art form touch you deeply, you have a moment of madness, which happen even now. So, and it was this madness that makes me practicing even when I was there alone. I used to have one room in this house, I still remember, kept empty, only some Bharatanatyam stuff, only the window with nothing opposite in front of me, and putting the tape cassette with Lakshman sir's adabu and doing tatadabu alone or whatever adabus. So that madness, I believe it's a phase and everyone has. What is changed that maybe they won't have the book, they will refer to a video. Maybe they won't have definitely the tape. They don't even know what it is a tape. The cassette, no, that tape that we used to put inside the. So they don't have that. They have more availability. They have recorded nice adabus with music. They have fancy stuff basically. But there is that madness that at one point I have to. So I have some students in this moment that they are in that madness, and I can see that. So they text me every day almost, and so that time there was a time I used to say, but actually it never changed for me, that I practice almost 20 hours out of 24 because I sleep 6 hours. Two of these hours will be dreaming of dance. So basically, there are 4 hours where I only sleep, and the rest of the time it's always in that. So practice is not only when you do the other, but it's now I'm talking with you, so I'm practicing somehow because already talking with you, I'm processing what I have lived, what I believe in dance and all. After that, I'll take the morning. I had one class, so I had the class. So basically, the full day, early morning, I woke up and I was reading a book. It's a book actually on mythology, so it's not specifically on dance, but there is all around. So basically, I feel to be a professional that you need to have that engagement basically almost daily, and definitely to be a student who is really sincere about and want to sincerely understand, there is a moment of madness, that it's a phase that you have to pass through, and surely they are living the same in with different sources basically.
I read that you're also doing research with University of Harvard, Lucrezia, comparing Indian and Greek uh, civilizations. Could you tell us something about that, your research?
Yeah. So I was lucky enough a few years ago during lockdown it happened. Then I've been appointed as visiting artist only for 1 year at Harvard University, but the Center for Hellenic Studies, which is in Washington D.C. So I could go there also and stay with them a couple of weeks and doing some research there. So the point is there are lots of similitude. I mean, lots of comparative work talks about lots of things which are very similar between the Indian mythology and the Greek mythology. Obviously, lots about also philosophy. Very very common things about philosophy. What I did, it was a work specifically. I took one myth which is the mythology of Meenakshi story. And I compared the Meenakshi story with the women warrior, the Amazons, especially one Amazon, which was, it's called more usually Penelope, but it change also over the mythology. So I tried to compare this women warrior and all the things that they have similar, because both are related to another, to a man somehow, and both are warriors. And so I have done the comparison, watching what is very similar and what is very different. So out of that, I have done one presentation there. I actually, interestingly, we did first one presentation on Bharatanāṭyam and Natya Shastra, and yeah, the aesthetically, the comparison in the statics of the ancient theater of Greek ancient theater and dance, because that's another story, and giving them so then an introduction of what it is, an Indian dance form. Because the problem of everywhere in the world, it's that if you are not aware, even in Harvard University, people will confuse, I don't know, folk dance, Bollywood, and classical. They'll put together. They are not really aware of the differences and the depth sometimes of this dance, because dance still in some places have been considered anyhow an art form which is just for entertainment. which I would question just and entertainment, but that's another story. So this introduction was very good for them to understand lots of similarity, lots of things, lots of topics which are inside. For example, lots of researchers were asking me about linguistic things because they mostly know Sanskrit. But I was talking about Telugu, I was talking about Tamil, that they don't know the Dravidian languages. And the Dravidian side, also another story is that in Western countries, very often the Dravidian history, it's not very highlighted. So the people, it's much more, when you say Indology in Europe, for example, it's mostly North Indian stuff. So sometimes you miss these connections with the South Indian languages and poetry and history. And then after that, I gave a second lecture demonstration, which was specifically about these two mythology. I explained what was the similarity and diversity that I found. And then I did some dance presentation where I combined also figures of images of the Amazon that I found during my research and some jatis of Bharatanāṭyam. So I combined the figures together because anyhow are mythological stories. So both of them give lots of scope for a dancer for going into the topic.
You had a chance to, you must have, of course, visit some temples where dance is depicted in the sculpture outside. Like, of course,
Yeah, yeah.
Chidambaram is the main one, but we have in Belur in Karnataka where the temple itself was conceptualized by a Devadasi and the dance poses are there. So, what are
Yeah,
your
Belur
thoughts?
and Alebi.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really love, I'm mesmerized actually by temples architecture and especially the column, I would say, because sometimes I notice, for example, I'm staying close to Tiruvamiyur in south of Chennai, where there is Marandishwara temple. Marandishwara, it's a cousin of Kapalishwara. Kapalishwara is so well known, but Marandishwara is a beautiful temple where suppose also Valmiki came and prayed in this temple. Lots of stories are around this temple, which is beautiful. And especially the Devi shrine, it's Tripura Sundari in this case, has this column with such a refined sculpture. And there is one which I also posted in my Instagram and all because as a pose with a typical pose of a dancer with the full, so beautiful. Anyhow, coming back, Belur Alibid, I visited twice and once also not far away, like a couple of years ago. And I totally understand. I have a friend which is a very lovely scholar, Indologist and Sanskrit scholar. Her name is Anna Tosato, and now she's working she's collaborating with the Illinois University. And she has lived in Karnataka for like 4 or 5 years and studying with Pandit, the oral traditional Sanskrit, and she specialized in the sculpture, dancing sculpture. So what she's saying, I believe I mean, I totally understand and I totally agree with her that the sculpture are talking. So if you watch the sculpture, but they are talking about so much, so much. So definitely I am very mesmerized. I really enjoy. I don't think that the sculpture reproduce exactly the exact movement of the dance of that time because I believe that sculpture is an art form different from the dance since it's only bidimensional because most of the time it's bas-relief, no? So it's bidimensional. I totally believe that, for example, the curve that has been given by the sculpture very often are not the one that we do in dance. Because we dance, we have the three dimensions, so we don't need to do much in that curve, but we need to do other stuff, which is, I think there are two different art forms, but still you can see the link, and still you can see that we both are talkative bodies, talkative images. So whatever you do, it's a talkative images. So that's a power which is very rare, and it's very beautiful as well. So yeah, I enjoy a lot to go in temples and watch all the dancing sculpture. I think it's a beautiful way of getting inspired.
We had interviewed some theater persons from Italy, and they were also Odissi dancers. And they were also mentioning this point about talking with your bodies. They were, they said theater in Europe doesn't, talking was reading from the script. Most of it, theater followed script reading techniques. Whereas when they started learning Odissi, they realized that they could talk and move around more instead of standing in one place. And you also mentioned in one interview a very beautiful idea about where you had to give a demonstration in a theater class, and at the end of which the person says that, about enthusiasm and the word enthusiasm having its
Yeah.
roots in. Could you share that? That was like absolutely beautiful.
That was a very lovely experience because I started theater actually even before Bharatanatyam, and I started also teaching quite early, quite young age. And there was actually it was during a theater course for teachers. So the master was already a wise person with lots of experience, and we were mostly of us young teachers basically. So that the exercise, suddenly he put some music and he asked me, you didn't know even my name. He asked me, can you please get up and improvise? With movement and body. That's all. No voice, no text, no thematic, nothing was given. So he just was asking me just respond to the music. So I enjoyed because I think is one of the most beautiful thing that I like to do is responding to a music. So I just respond to the music and I went in my trip basically responding to the music. At the end, he just looked at other people and said, entheus is the roots for enthusiasm that in Greek apparently means inside theus, God. So inside there is God. Everyone got goosebumps because they knew that I was already in Bharatanatyam, and in Bharatanatyam we represent very often gods and divinities, or we embody or we talk with divinities. So it's a very there is a very big connections. While if you tell this to a contemporary dance, it doesn't have that much connect, maybe, but to a Bharatanatyam. So for all the rest of the people, they got goosebumps, and they all told me, how does he know? And he didn't know. Didn't know anything about me, anything about Bharatanatyam. But he figured it out that there was some power, which I believe maybe it's also given by Bharatanatyam, or I gave to, I don't know. It's something that was there, and it was a very beautiful experience with this person. It's true that in Europe, most of actually, and in the ancient time, we also had lots of body movements in theater. What happened in the Western theater is at one point of the history they separate. Theater became to be a vachika, a spoken art form, while a dance is a non-significant, non significant in the sense not giving history or just the movement art form. So they separate it. But the theater I have been trained also, it was using quite a lot of physicality, which is what I also taught to people to talk with their body, because the body contains the voice. So you have to train the body first in order to get a voice out. And always theater, it's whatever performing arts you are doing, doesn't matter. First it's seen. So the first thing that you see, and sometimes you don't need even words to talk. So the words for me are something which is a part of the theater, but not the essential part of the theater. That's also my journey.
One last question about Carnatic music. So what is it about? Is it difficult to learn for one, and because of its complexity? And two is, can somebody who is not trained in Carnatic music appreciate it to its fullest?
So it is difficult. Definitely, it's difficult. It's a very articulated art form. It's very difficult for a foreigner. It's extremely difficult for one reason, which is gamakas, because we are not trained in gamakas at all, at all. So we have this so-called in Western music embellishment, and this is a very interesting topic because it's see the old art form in India are crossing each other: music, dance, poetry. So for us, for in India, embellishment it's a fundamental thing. It's not a something that you can have or not. For Westerners, usually the embellishment means it's already complete by itself. I can put something to make it more beautiful. So this embellishment can be there or cannot. It's the same. It doesn't change the nature and the quality of the art. For India, change. It's not art. If you don't have gamaka, you are not doing Carnatic music. If you don't, in Belur Alibid, if you don't have that flower decoration, is not anymore that sort of. It's not anymore Indians, I would say. So I'm not saying it's a very fact thing. Like embellishment is a part because the beautifulness of things are it's and the aesthetic is a part essential of the process of Indian arts, whatever arts. So that's a mostly difficult thing for us. Raga wise, we can also understand, but the problem is that again goes back to the gamakas and goes back obviously to the different shrutis, which is something which is very difficult to understand. And also because Carnatic music is basically, and lots of other art form in India are basically oral traditions. So the oral traditions are tougher for us, which are more written tradition. Even music, we write the music. We have the pentagram and we write music. We have to read and write. So here you have to listen and reproduce. So it's a little bit difficult for that. Having said that, is not impossible. There are good musicians, and doesn't matter if you are how much you can reach in the music, for example, but definitely you become a better audience. And as I come to the second question of yours, it's difficult to appreciate. There are people who have some resonance with some music, even though they don't know, which is a different resonance. I believe it's a more deeper resonance, maybe related to something, maybe previous life or something which touches you in some other way or deeper way. I don't know. But if you are trained somehow or little bit in an art form, it definitely you can understand and appreciate more. So that's my point.
Lovely. Is there anything common between Indians and Italians in terms of how we are, as people? Like we celebrate, as you know, every other day is a celebration, and I think it's the same with a lot of people in Italy, where everything is celebratory. Like somebody was just telling us with fondness, of course, that we know when the plane landed, all the Italians would clap with happiness. It's something so beautiful that even something so mundane we can be happy about. So, do you find any commonalities?
Actually, yeah, you know that there is a say that Italians are the Indians of the West, or yeah, there is a lot of yeah. There is also in one very popular book. What is called that book? Shantaram. There is a quote about this, about how Italians and Indians are very very common. Yeah, and my guru itself, before even coming to Italy, he told me. So we have lots of things common. Family based, food, food madness, spicy because we use lots of spicy and we use lots of vegetables because Mediterranean cuisine is based on vegetables. So music, so we have a madness for music. Definitely, we are a little loud. So if you go in if you go in any cafe in Europe, if you hear someone screaming, definitely or Italian or Spanish. It's not from any other ever else in Europe. We are very loud, very passionate. It's true. It's quite stereotype things, but comes from a reality which is true. So definitely we have lots of things common. Mom, it's something untouchable. And yeah, and definitely also the way of approaching life little more, at least in the origins, because I see that the Indians are becoming very different and very westernized. So Yeah, very, very much. So now it's more more formal or but again we are going to the stereotype of things which has a truth somehow little bit. So surely there is a connection and very, very, very obvious. In fact, there are lots of Italians who study Bharatanatyam
Oh, yeah, that's
and
beautiful.
Odissi as well a little bit.
Yeah. I think more than other forms, I think Bharatanatyam and Odissi have been the most
Yeah, and
popular.
yeah, more than other farm also because the exposition was on that. So yeah, it
Right.
happens.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Rikrit. It was lovely
Welcome.
speaking to you. Yeah.